Many people don't want to talk about service delivery in SMA, but it's by far the most important part of your agency. We have put together an 80-minute masterclass for you to literally copy and paste our service delivery systems, literally A to Z, in terms of nurturing leads, following up the leads, how to target ads, retarget ads, and all these good things. At the end of this video, I'm going to give you the full go high level snapshots that we use in terms of delivering amazing client results. This masterclass is actually done by Elliot, who's actually scaling his agency past 15 grand a month, is working with whale clients, getting his clients 15x ROI, and making some of them even quit their jobs. I'll see you at the end. Goodbye.
So before we actually try to, okay, what's the ad, bro? Like because that's the behavior pattern that I see. Give me the ad, give me whatever. But the thing is, like Einstein says it best, if you had an hour to solve a problem, he'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about solutions. And that's the same with service delivery. And because actually service delivery is the most important problem you have to solve as an agency owner, before we actually try to solve it, we need to understand like what kind of subsystems it consists of, what variables come into play, what are the interconnections between them. We can't just go in, oh, let me just set up ads and that's it, it will work. It's not like that. We need to actually understand what kind of problem we're actually trying to solve before trying to do anything, basically. So just to keep it simple, there are three main subsystems when it comes to service delivery. So if you're an intermediate or you have been in the agency space for a bit, you'd understand this. But like for anyone who's just starting out, service delivery is just three subsystems. First one is just basically lead generation. You're generating leads for your clients. The second one is lead nurturing. You're basically how you nurture the leads until the point you get them to a customer. And the third thing is lead conversion. And yes, there are a few agencies that don't do lead conversion, but today I'll be talking about the entire process. And either way, even if you don't do the lead conversion yourself, you leave it for your clients to do, you can still essentially teach them how to do it because most of SMMA clients, they don't know what they're doing and they're very unskilled business owners. So you'll have to kind of take control of their business and actually show them how the entire thing is done. So those are the three subsystems that we're working with: a lead generation system, a lead nurturing system, and a lead conversion system. Okay, keeping it simple also, we're also generating leads through media buying, either on social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, some people do Twitter, some whatever it is, X, I mean, or search engines like Google, whatever it is. And then we nurture and convert them through Go High Level. And if you don't know what Go High Level actually is, you're living under a rock. Okay, so if you're not using the latter that I just mentioned for service delivery, your agency will not survive. Like it's impossible for it to survive, especially if you're not using Go High Level. Because if you're not using Go High Level, it's like the evolution of like from monkey to human. You're basically a monkey agency if you're not using Go High Level. So if you're not using it or procrastinating, oh, it costs like the $99 a month, I'm not gonna use it. Your agency will die. You shouldn't even try. Okay. So we media buy through social media platforms, mainly Meta or search engines like Google, and everything else is done on Go High Level. If you're not using Go High Level, go get an account. Okay. So what's actually then the key to having amazing service delivery? Because here's the thing, if service delivery was as easy as running ads, there wouldn't be any demand for agencies. Okay? Because the economic market essentially like it makes the decision if someone should be paid a certain amount or not by simply like the how big the problem or how complex the problem they're actually solving and the amount of experience that they actually need. Because if it was as easy, oh bro, just let me run some ads or something like that, or let me set up like some SMS sequence or whatever, people wouldn't be paying thousands of dollars every single month for something that simple. So before we actually go into it and how we do it, you need to understand that this is like a significant problem that you're gonna need skills to actually solve. So it's not as simple as just running ads, and that's why you actually get paid. Okay, people are getting paid like sometimes like 10 grand plus retainers because essentially that you're bringing creative skills to the table, how to media buy, blah, blah, blah. You're saving time for business owners. You're being tech savvy. And most importantly, you're able to manipulate data, which is the most important skill in service delivery, and that's what we'll talk about in the next few slides. So essentially, since we're operating in an economic environment because we're running ads to other humans, and all of these humans live in an economic environment, so we're all operating into it. This environment, it's always changing, and there's a lot of variables that come into play. Something might happen. There's something with politics. There's an election. There's somewhat of an event. Blah blah blah. There's a customer behavior that changed. Customers are evolving. They're building biases towards certain things. They're starting to love certain things more than others, and markets are essentially reforming. This is always happening, okay? And it's the natural, essentially, a pathway and the evolving of the capitalistic market that we live in. It's always going to be changing. And why we say that is because no one can actually show you how to get results for your niche. Because, okay, they might give you the ad that they were using 3 months ago, but it doesn't certainly have to work right now because you don't know how that market changed. There might be some new technology, some new whatever, and that could literally disrupt your entire system. So, if it's not actually having a certain ad or a certain copy or whatever, what's the way that we can actually get results consistently to be able to have clients consistently happy, blah, blah, blah? The only way to get results consistently is to actually just be testing new stuff all day, every day, always, and tracking everything. And by tracking, we mean tracking them in a numbers form. So even if something is working right now, you're just constantly trying new stuff, new ideas, new stuff, new ideas, and you're always keeping track of everything that happens. And why we do this is because metrics and numbers are the only way for us to understand what's working and what is not with our service delivery. Because since there are so many variables, so many parameters that actually come into play, we can just rely, oh, ROI is bad, let me just change my entire system. It doesn't work like that. Okay? If you do that, oh, ROI is bad, let me just change my entire campaign, you're setting up yourself for failure. So what we do is to be able to essentially win in the service delivery game, we're actually trying to split these metrics into subsystems of the subsystems themselves. And by actually keeping track of these systems always, and always like trying, okay, this kind of metric is not really in KPI. How should we manipulate this? Blah blah blah. If you do that all day, all year long, that's how you beat your competitors. Because like essentially having a good product, that's what makes your agency work. Because you can do all the cold calls in the world, you can run all the ads for your agency in the world, you can have four fully booked calendar. If you have a shit product, you're gonna burn through your niche fast, like really fast, and no one will work with you. So the key to actually winning against all of your competitors and actually winning in this service delivery thing and like essentially having a system that works always is by actually tracking and essentially having more metrics, more data, and that's like having more weapons under your belt. It's like you're a video game character, and the more metrics you acquire, it's like you acquiring more skills, more abilities in the video game. The more you have of that, the more essentially you'll be valued more. Even if you look at corporate level, most corporations, like their value is highly correlated with how much data they actually have. It's not even sometimes like the revenue. It's sometimes like how much data they actually have on their niche, on their customers, blah, blah, blah. So the most important thing for you to understand to build a service delivery system, there is no magic thing. There is essentially nothing. There is no secret. It's basically just trying new stuff all day, every day, and tracking it. That's the secret, essentially. So, like, why would you actually do this essentially with the metrics and tracking? Because if there was an honest language, and it is actually the only honest language in the world, it's the language of numbers. It never lies. Because if you're tracking correctly, actually what you'll be able to do is you'll know where you're lacking on. You know what system is not on point. You know what thing in your service delivery system is not essentially working as it's supposed to be. Because we have these subsystems as we've talked about, like the three ones. And within these three subsystems, we have more subsystems. It's like a branch, it's like a tree. And essentially, to be able to have the tree grow entirely, we need to start isolating them like one by one. There's a few key metrics. Okay, there's a metric here related to lead nurturing. There's a metric here related to lead generation, blah, blah, blah. And there's a lot of them. There are a few ones that are more important. But essentially, by identifying, like isolating every single one, we can then identify cause and effect accurately. So, okay, when this happens, this happens. When I actually write my copy in this kind of tone, uh, other things like certain things happen. When I write it in another tone, other things happen. So by being able to essentially isolate metrics on their own, then we can identify what's causing what and why things are happening, whether they're good or not. And just to essentially make it easier for you to understand, we will be mainly dealing with what I call them on-platform metrics and off-platform metrics. And what I mean by that on platform is that I mean on the lead generation platform you're using for media buying, where you're actually generating the leads. So, for example, Google or Meta, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, whatever it is, I call them on platform metrics. And for off platform metrics, that's everything that happens on the back end, which is basically the lead nurturing, lead conversion, everything that essentially happens on go high level. Okay. So, and another important thing to understand is that these metrics, they have a direct and indirect effect on ROI. So all of these subsystems and all of these metrics, yes, they all branch into the main metric, which is ROI, but not something might not be working doesn't mean that it's not that it is the problem. It might be something before it or like in parallel to it. So you can't just look at it like in a tunnel vision. You need to look at it from different angles to be able to essentially understand it. And I know like this might seem overwhelming right now because like to be honest, it's hard, it's not easy to know how to manipulate data and to look at it from the right way. But like by doing it like consistently, you'll be able to understand. And what I actually did, I went and essentially isolated the most important metric and told you what affects what so you can actually understand. So let's start with this. Okay. So the first metric, CPL, cost per lead. So by this, we mean like how many dollars or whatever your currency is that you're advertising with, how much money do you need to spend to get a lead, to essentially fill a form or fill a funnel, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Cost per lead, it has certain factors that influence it. And as I've said before, since it's subsystems of subsystems, these influencing factors are actually other metrics. So I'll explain these other metrics, and then I'll explain what affects these metrics too. So it's like a branch, as I've said. Everything affects something that affects something that affects something that in the end, they all affect ROI. Okay, so for CPL, it's mainly affected by four things. First thing is CPM. And by CPM, we mean how much money does it cost you for 1,000 people on a platform, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Google, to actually see your ad. So, for example, you might be spending $30 for 1,000 people to see it. And the more this goes up, the more your CPL will go up. Because now, if like if you're spending $100 for 1,000 people to see it, and only one of them is converting, that means you're spending $100 per lead. So that's how essentially it affects it. And this is essentially tied down to multiple things. If we would go back to CPM, what actually affects it is primarily audience size, how many people you're actually advertising to. So, for example, if you're advertising in a market of 50,000 people, what will happen is, yes, your ads will work at the start, but they will get fatigued really quick. And by that, I mean like the platform or the algorithm, it will get it more expensive for it to actually find people that might be interested just because of the cap of the audience size. So that's what mainly affects CPM. What also affects it might be creative. And by that, we mean like, is your creative actually like essentially gets people attention and makes them kind of interested in looking at what it has to say, blah, blah, blah. Because actually, when your creative is good and it's getting people hooked and it's getting people to stop when they're scrolling, that's feeding back into the algorithm. Oh, this ad is good. This ad needs to be shown to more people. So that's how it decreases it. It can happen also in the other way around. If everyone is scrolling past it or whatever it is, like scroll past it, the algorithm will learn, oh, I shouldn't be like showing this to multiple people because clearly they don't like it. So let's just push the people and show ads of competitors because they're staying more on their creative. So that's the second thing that actually affects CPM. The third thing is placements, where your ads are actually being shown on the platform. So for example, I'm not sure about Google because I haven't used it much, but for example, for Meta, you have like stories, feeds, audience network, whatever it is. Most of the time, you need to actually show your ads just on the where people spend most of their time on, which is feeds and stories and reels. But it really depends on what type of ad you're running, because if you're running, for example, a reel style of ad, why run it on a feed when you can just push all of the budget to the reel? So that's what actually affects CPM. The second thing that affects CPL is the cost per click. And what basically cost per click means is basically, okay, someone scrolled by your ad, they stopped, they read what it has to offer. Okay. How many of those are actually clicking? Okay. By how many of those are actually clicking, we get two metrics, which is like how many dollars do you need to spend to actually get people to click on your form or to click to see more on your ad or blah, blah, blah. And what's the percentage? That's CPC and CTR, click-through rate and cost per click. So, and those two metrics are essentially basically mean that whenever people see your ad, what are they actually doing when they see it? And what actually essentially affects these two metrics are the creative. As I've said, like how attractive is it to people when they see it, for them to actually go ahead and click on it or try to see more or try to even click on the form. What's the headline? Because essentially, when people see the ads, they look at the creative, they look at the headline, then they read the copy. That's usually how the eye goes on the Meta on Meta, for example, on feed. They read they see the creative, they read the headline, and then they read the copy. That's how it usually goes. So if those three things are not on point and they're not essentially incentivizing enough for people, these metrics will be fucked and they won't be essentially on point. The last thing that actually affects cost per leads is click to lead. And by this, we mean by people actually clicking on your form or on your funnel, how many of them are actually finalizing that process, because they can just click on it, they see something and they exit it out. They don't actually finish submitting their info. So what actually affects this? It's the offer, because maybe your creative is good, maybe it's something funny, maybe it's something organic that they just, okay, let's see whatever this happens, and then they look at the offer. What is this, like why, like I'm not interested in that. So offer, like the offer you're running for your clients will affect this much. Also the form, because the form can be essentially have a lot of questions and they get bored in the middle of it, so you need to strike a balance. You don't have a lot of questions and you don't have little of questions. You need to ask questions and you need to ask the right questions. Don't go too personal. Don't try to push people for something they wouldn't want to essentially share with you on Meta, even though Mark Zuckerberg knows everything. But essentially, make sure that your form is on point. So that affects click to lead. And also, if you're using a funnel, if you get people to click on the link of the funnel, if your funnel isn't optimized or set up properly, they will not submit their info. So these are the four metrics that actually affect CPL on Facebook. And essentially, by you fixing every single variable and every single influencing factors of these metrics, it's very hard for you not to have the cost per lead on point. And by on point, we mean like around $5 to $20 per lead. Okay, so the last two things, and which are actually off-platform metrics that are all on the back-end side of things with lead nurturing and lead conversion. The first one is the answer rate, because we all know that the conversion, it happens on the phone, not on text, not on email, blah, blah, blah. It also always happens on the phone, like our sales calls as agency owners. For answer rate, there are two influencing factors. There's speed to lead. So by that, I mean, someone submitted their info, you need to call them 5 minutes in after they submit it. Because here's the thing, when people submit their info, they're getting emotional. That's why they submitted it, because you hit a pain point or you've incentivized them to do something. If you take more time to actually contact them, what will happen is that emotion will start to fade. And the more it fades, the less incentivized they are to take action. the less incentivized they are to essentially buy from your client or whatever it is. So that's why it's very important to be very, very fast with responding to leads after they submit their info. The second thing is consistency. Because as human beings, we're not just there sitting on the phone thinking about the service we've just submitted a form to. We're like, we have other things, we have emergencies, we have other stuff to do. So if they don't answer today, that doesn't mean you stop calling them. You call them 7 weeks straight, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. You essentially try to maximize your chance of getting them on the phone. So those are the two influencing factors of the answer rate. Now let's move to ABR, which is basically appointment booking rate. How many of the people that are actually submitting a lead are actually booking an appointment? And for those three, it's the offer. Basically, is the offer incentivizing enough for them to book in an appointment or get the service? It's the calling script. Are you like, hello, you want to get service? That doesn't work. You need to have a script on point, and also you need to have a tonality. It's not like you call, "Hey, you want it or not?" It's not. You're not a gangster, okay? Hey, how are you? You know, have a good have a good tonality with that. So these are essentially the 6, 7 metrics that essentially dictate your service delivery. These are the influencing factors. You don't have to rethink it. This is how it works. Do not reinvent the wheel. If you have all of these on point, it will work. If one of them is not on point, go check what is not on point and go play around with the shit that's related to it and that's influencing it. So the question comes is how do we actually track metrics, which is very simple. This is example, the form that I used to, the sheet that I use to track my clients' metrics. Essentially, we have in here like a dashboard where we have all of the info, like ad spend, lead, click to lead, answer rate, blah, blah, blah. And everything is filled on the back end. So here you have a paper where there's all of the leads, what happens with them, the conversion, when did they book, what are they valued at, was cash collected or not. So we collect everything on here in the back end. And also we track all of the data from Facebook daily. You just log into your ad account and copy it from there. And essentially here you'll see what's happening with your account. So you'll see, okay, so this is cost per show, this is how that's the profit, this is the return, this is the X multiplier. And this is actually very important to have because you can actually show it to your client and they'll love it. Okay? Because like here you can see, it's like you can see the entire picture, and this kills essentially any randomness to your service delivery. So let's just continue. Okay, so we track metrics. Okay, we understand how to track metrics, but how do we actually improve them? Essentially, we improve metrics by giving the market something, seeing how it reacts over a respectable period of time, adjusting according to what it reacted to, and repeating the process until all your metrics are on point. And you might ask a question, what do you mean by having all metrics on point? What we mean about that is having basically an ROI that's 5x plus. That's as simple as it is. So if you don't have an ROI 5x plus, just backtrack all the math, identify which metric is essentially not working, not really in KPI, and go from there. Work with the influencing factors, adjust one thing in them, try a slightly different angle, try a slightly different copy, see how they react, do it again until essentially you have it on point. And essentially, every variable that you have from that table that I've showed you, that's not in KPI, that's what you're gonna use to be able to determine where your systems are lacking. Because, okay, you might be getting like a fuck ton of leads, but you're not converting anything. Yes, you might say, oh yeah, my conversion process sucks. But no, what might be happening is you might be attracting the wrong kind of audience. So when you're looking at this, you have a problem, your ROI is not in KPI. Look at the entire picture, identify what are the possible problems, and then start playing around with them. After that, the most important thing is to be scientific. And by that, what we mean is to change one thing at a time. If you feel like I don't know, like if you feel like your script is not working for converting leads, it's like, for example, cold calling. You do not go ahead and like remove the entire script and redo it. What you go ahead and do is, for example, you change the opener a bit. You see, you track. Oh, okay, it's a little bit better. Let's try it like a little bit slightly different. You do that for everything. Be scientific. Change one thing at a time. Track it, and that's it. You know? Do not, please, for the sake of God, do not change multiple variables at once. Okay? You will create a huge mess. You won't be able to identify what causes what, and you're essentially burn through your client's ad spend. Okay? To be able to fix any problem in business, you need to be able to identify what's causing what, to understand the entire picture, to be able to attack it. You can't just create this whole ball of mass of, oh, this ad said this campaign, this ad said this campaign. You won't be able to do anything. So do not let emotions control your actions. If your client is, hey, we're like the leads aren't high quality, we need to change the campaign. I don't know, I don't have ad spend, my wife is gonna leave me. No, do not do that. Do not listen to them. You need to be there like a rock, tell them we're working on it. These are the metrics that you're trying to get on KPI this week, and you continue that process. Do not let emotions come into play, because if they do, they will set you up for failure. Not even for service delivery, everything in business, maybe even everything in life. So make calculated and scientific adjustments, and in the end, you will win. Trust me. If you continue like playing by like the metric game and the scientific game, you will win. It's impossible for you not to win. It's literally like a universal law. If you go by metrics and be scientific, you will win in the end. Okay, so another thing that I wanted to add when it comes to metrics, it's important that we understand that they're not domino metrics. And by that, I mean, as the example I've mentioned before, it doesn't mean that one is in KPI, that the other has to be in KPI. So the example that I mentioned earlier, if your cost per lead is $1, but your conversion rate is low, that doesn't necessarily indicate a flaw in your lead conversion or something. So that's why it's important to look at essentially the entire picture, and do not be essentially uh, tunnel focusing on something. Just look at the entire picture, because it might not be as clear as you think it is. Okay, so I'm done with bombarding you with uncool stuff and boring stuff, which is actually the most important thing. And now I'll actually talk about how I set up ads for SMMA clients. If you're looking for shiny stuff, this is it. You're welcome. So essentially, I have a straightforward strategy to use to essentially ensure that I achieve above average results with my ads right from the get-go. Because it's very hard for you to get the best results from the get-go, but it's kind of easy to get like average-ish, like enough results for your client to shut up for a month. Okay, while we work on improving them. So essentially, this will provide you with a head start, and essentially it removes all of the need for micro testing and this variable and this variable. Okay, I'm not that big of a nerd. Okay. So essentially, how I essentially work with this strategy for the front end setup, and by that I mean everything that's showcased to the customer. I have something very simple. I have one offer, 4 to 5 angles, and I will explain every single uh, thing of these later. 5 creatives, 3 generalized copies, one that's short form, one that's mid form, one that's long form, and 3 to 5 ad headlines. So this is basically my front end setup. I'll explain every single one of these later. So this is basically how I start every single new campaign for a client. So let's actually understand. First thing, offer. How do you create an offer? And this, I believe everyone saw this by this point, the Hormozy offer thing. Basically, with an offer is what's like the service that your client is actually selling. What is it actually providing to his clientele? Is it saving him time, saving him stress, saving him essentially money? It could be anything. For example, for real estate, people get real estate agents because they don't want to deal with the hassle of finding a buyer themselves. That's mainly why they hire a real estate agents. For example, someone who wants to I don't know, like remake his backyard. He can make it on his own. He can learn the skill on his own and try to make it. But no, he like essentially he doesn't want to make the effort and sacrifice, so that's why he outsources it. So to be able to create an offer, see what your service is actually fixing, what it's essentially what's the effort and sacrifice that it's taking off the bat of the customer, what's the time delay, is it more, is it better? Essentially try to find what's the thing that your essentially client is fixing mainly for his clientele, and that's essentially how you create an offer. And also, if you need inspiration, what offer to run for your niche, just go to Facebook Ads Library, see what other people in that niche are doing, what kind of offer they're doing, get inspiration, but do not copy. Okay? Do not copy because it doesn't work if you copy. So that's how you get inspirations. You can also not necessarily try to essentially emulate some people in the same niche. You can find different industries, but just make sure that they have the same type of transactions. So B2B or B2C, and essentially they try to find someone is in a similar price range, even if it's a different niche. Most likely it will work for your niche too as an offer. Okay, so these are a few offer examples. Can be free quotes, X dollar amount off, buy X, get X for free, or get X off, free sessions, trials, blah, blah, blah. You can, it's an entire ocean of offers. Get creative with it. And after a while, you will know which offer works best with your niche. So you won't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. And as with advertising angles, as I've mentioned, I do like 4 to 5 angles. Essentially, angles are basically different ways of of essentially delivering the offer to the clientele. So as we've seen the equation, there's time sacrifice, essentially all of that. What I do is I choose one part of the offer and I choose one part of the offer, then try to advertise it. So I see what part of the offer actually resonates best with the customer with the client's niche, and then that's an advertising angle. So I start with like 4, 5. So for example, if it's a gym, let's say I start with the first angle that you get something essentially for free. That so they don't have to do anything. For example, if it's like for a car detailing business, I actually push that they don't have to go anywhere. We send the client to their home to fix the thing, so they don't have to make any effort or sacrifice. So for your niche, just find like look at the offer equation, take different angle, test it with the customer's essentially audience, and you'll figure out which angle works best and which one resonates most. So test 4, 5, you'll find which one resonates. And also one thing I wanted to mention is start by only testing your angles with creatives. Do not use it essentially for ad copy and other stuff. Just use your creative to essentially test, is it like the before and after, or is it like the fact that you're mobile, or blah blah blah, just to make sure essentially which angle works. Then you can dive deep into like making it specific for the angle for everything else on the front end. Okay, add creative, please. It's called the creative for a reason. Okay, get creative. Essentially, okay, but if I'll give you a tip about creatives, just make sure they appear organic, so they don't look like an ad, because people have built like a bias. They see something that feels like an ad and they scroll past it. And also, again, if you need inspiration, just go to Meta's ad library, but please do not copy. Here are a few essentially examples, before and afters, testimonials, videos explaining process, video of client in action. This really doesn't matter. Please get creative. Add copy. Essentially, copy, what it does is once people are hooked by the creative, what they do is they go and read the copy. So basically, the copy, like the creative, gets them hooked, and the copy sells them on submitting the lead info. So if you fail to essentially get the right emotions triggered with your copy, that's a lead down the drain. And also, like, copywriting is a skill; it improves over time. So, like, don't stress a lot about it. You'll get better with it, but there's a few structures. So here's like mostly how the structure would work. So you just have a hook, like a niche, attention, like blah blah blah. Then you have like a service target audience segmentation. If you own a like of I don't know, like if you've been fat for the last 6 months, so anything like that, essentially. So that's how like you this who this is actually for. Then you explain the service in detail. Then you mention the offer and add some scarcity to it. This offer is only available for November, blah, blah, blah. Then just CTA at the end. And then have just 3 copies, one long form, one mid form, one short form, condense it all. That's it. And essentially condense this all, but this is the structure that you should follow. Essentially, as I've said, like write different variations, blah blah blah, and then you know which one essentially gets better results. You won't have to reinvent the wheel and test everything out every single time. Okay, so how to set up add headlines, very simple. Just have offer or benefit offer. Essentially, just like have something that catches the attention. Get X for free, or essentially free quote or something like that. Just use it, like use something that essentially works with your niche. Okay, so that's the front end setup. Now, when it comes to the back end setup, how we actually set up Facebook, one campaign, one or five ad sets, a dynamic creative or five ads. I'll go over in a meta to explain every single part of these, by the way. 25 plus daily budget, instant form at the start, 10 to 25 mile radius, no interest targeting, plus classic audience. Do not use the Advantage Plus. For placements, feeds, stories, and reels. That's what you use. Okay. So now let's actually go to Meta, and I'll actually show you how to set this up and the essentially the difference. Let me just discard this draft. Okay. So if I go ahead and create a new campaign, I'm just going to create a campaign. I'll choose leads, continue, manual leads campaign. Okay. Don't touch anything in here. Let's go next. Okay, so now you have two options. You either can do one ad set or five ad sets. What's the difference? Is essentially what we can do it for the for the five creatives. We can either split them across five ad sets or have them all in the same ad set. What's the difference? What are the advantages, disadvantages? By having them in the same ad set, you essentially give more control to the Facebook machine learning. So it won't essentially give the same ad spend to every single ad. So it won't be as accurate, but it's just like Facebook trying to guess which one works better. Or you can have five ad sets where you can literally have one ad per ad set, and that will literally be like the most accurate thing. To be honest, I have a tendency to like to do it all in one ad set just because like the machine learning of Facebook is very powerful. So it might save you a lot of time and money. So let's go ahead and do one ad set. I start with instant forms. Once I prove creatives, I switch over to funnels, maximize number of leads. Okay, for dynamic creative, you can either have five ads into the same ad set or have one ad with five creatives. What's the difference? Dynamic creative is giving even more control to Facebook's machine learning. I like to do it. It's a choice that you can make. Either if you want to be a little bit more accurate with metrics or give more control to Facebook. Then for the daily budget, I usually set it at least $25. For the audience, just choose the location around your clients. That's it, essentially 20 to 25 mile radius. You can discuss this with him. Do not use Advantage Plus. Use the normal audience. No targeting at all. That's it. You just use this. It works best. Do not believe these people. They're liars. You know, they tell you it's up to 33% lower cost per result. They just want to milk data out of you, by the way. It doesn't actually work. Other than that, just keep this. It's very simple. Advantage Plus, don't use this. Use the placement that I've just gave you in the past few sheets, like the feeds and stories. Everything else, turn it off. That's it. Like feeds, Facebook feeds, Instagram feeds, no Facebook Marketplace, no Facebook video feeds, Explore yes, no Explore Home, no Business Explore. That's bullshit. So just these and this basically. Just use these placements. They work best. For the ad itself, I've just explained like the fee, like how to write the copy, blah blah blah. So you can just like model it of that. We can't really show you because every niche is different. So that's basically how you create a campaign. It's very simple, by the way. It's just about having everything prepared beforehand, and you can just literally over time you know what thing works or not. But that's for the backend setup side of things. So that's literally how you set it up. Do not overthink it. That's how it works right now, as of the 26th of July, 2024. Okay, so how do you actually improve the campaign? Essentially, after you establish the offer and establish like what type of creative works, and by that we mean which angle, what we do is we double down on the one that's working. So we tested four different things that are completely different. Angle 3 is working. We go ahead and make angle 3 even better. We try more variations of angle 3. If something is winning, try to make it win even more. Do not essentially, oh, it's okay to even, I got results, okay, it's okay. No, if angle 3 is working best, make more variations of angle 3. Try to find something that works better, and you will, trust me. So essentially just try to have more and better stuff. Don't just rely, okay, one thing works, that's it. Have more and better, more and better, more and better, and just like be in a constant state of testing and reiterating to be in a constant state of growth. The natural timeline of this strategy is essentially establish angle, works best, start to reiterate on the creative, the copy, that's it. So establish front-end elements. Once you find which front-end elements works, what type of front-end elements works, I just start playing around with the backend stuff, and by that primarily I just transition to a funnel instead of instant forms as the lead quality tends to be better. Okay. How do you continue improving a campaign? Just have a little sandbox for ad sets, like if you can afford it, like even $5 a day to test new ideas and your new stuff to essentially try to be ahead of the market. So once the current thing stops working, you always have something in the vault that works. Okay. So now that we've actually understood how to generate leads, and this is actually taken longer than I expected, how do we actually convert them? Unless you're living under a rock, okay? You would have expected that we will be using Go High Level, okay? And as I've said, like at the start of this masterclass, if you're not using Go High Level, like just quit from now, okay? You either use Go High Level or you lose, okay? So, but like, how do we actually get the most out of its functionalities? Because there's a lot to Go High Level. Essentially, before that, we just need to understand the process of lead nurturing to be able to apply it in the real world, which means in Go High Level. Because essentially, you can have the best media buying skills. Okay, you can get the best leads out there, but if you can't convert or nurture, your client ad spend will go to waste. So lead nurturing, essentially, it varies across different niches, and you might be providing your clients just with leads, or you could be going like the extra mile by setting up appointments and converting sales. But either way, you should have a lead nurturing system. You don't just leave it to randomness to your client to figure it out. So I will present to you how to structure a lead nurturing process until an appointment or sale is made. So even if your client is doing it on his own, you can just tell them to follow this process because it works. I've tested it like for a very long time. I just know it works. Okay. So one of the most important parts of the lead nurturing is the first 5 to 10 minutes after a lead submits. Because as I've said before, when someone claimed an offer or clicked on an ad, they're emotionally engaged. And we want to catch them at that point when their emotions are being riled up. Because every human action comes from an emotion, okay? You came here to this service delivery masterclass because you're feeling an emotion of pain because you don't really understand how to service clients, which is affecting the way you sell them. Okay? Because you can't have conviction if you don't know what you're doing. Every human action, sorry, is coming from a certain emotion being riled up. So, to be able to to be able to essentially take the most out of it, we try to hit them like as soon as possible, you know? They just submitted it, we get them there, okay? That's so essentially by reaching them out immediately after like emotions are being triggered, like your likelihood of converting them is through the roof because they're still like having that emotion that's triggered the action. The longer it takes for you to make the first contact, the less emotionally engaged they become, the less likely they are to engage with your offer again. So, speed to lead is very, very, very important. Whether you're doing it or your client is doing it, get a notification, call them straight away, double dial them. Okay. So, the best way to set up a first touch point, and because like we can't also like always be able to pick up the phone 5 minutes in, maybe they're submitting it at 1 a.m. What we do is we have a welcome text sent to the lead as max as like 3 minutes after they submit their lead info and make it seem super organic. Okay, so like maybe make it seem like you've just wrote it by hand on your phone. It's gonna be automated, but we're just going to make it look that way. Then after that, 10 minutes after that, try to call them and try to double dial them. So whether your client is doing it, whether you're doing it, make sure you receive the notifications and respond ASAP. It's very, 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 very important. Okay? So for the welcome text, I try to make it like seem human, natural. Hey, it's name, so you claimed offer, I'll try to call you ASAP, by the way, and ask them an open-ended question. Because by asking an open-ended question, now they have to use their mind to reply. And by them using their mind, what we do is we build this bias. When someone actually gives you something or essentially takes effort into doing something with you, they're more likely to do that thing again, over and over again. And the more that happens, it's exponential. So the more someone gives to you, the more they're likely to give to you again. So that's why we ask them this question. So by them answering it, now we've engaged in a conversation. And then when making the actual call, we need to develop our own approach because we're operating in different niches. We don't really know whether it's you or your client again. The best method to do it, like Facebook, like everything in service delivery, experience different techniques, track metrics, and then until you hit KPIs. Essentially, don't. It's not you're not gonna figure out the best way from the get-go. So just keep trying new stuff and testing it out. But a few things that would work for every single niche, basically, just have a good tonality, like cold calling. Don't be pissed off. Like I remember I was like my agency was blowing up. I was having like 8 to 12 sales calls a day, and I also had to call leads for 5 clients. And I'd call the leads and like, you want it or not? I would be very pissed, and that that killed my conversion rate. So make sure to essentially have a good tonality. Okay. Also, have a genuine human conversation. Don't sound like a robot, please. Okay? Don't sound, yes, no, yeah, you have this service. Sound like a human, okay? Other than that, just be a decent person over the phone. Like, sound like a human. And these tips actually also work for cold calling. If you're doing cold calling, sound like a human, man. You're talking to another human. Do not sound like a robot or scripted. And for the actual talking, how I usually model it is I have like a greetings, essentially explain why I'm calling. Then I'll ask them 3 to 5 questions about their current situation, kind of like building pain and identifying them with a problem. It's like a mini sales call. Then I just pitch them for an appointment or a sale. It's very simple. It's easier than the sales process for an agency. This is how the structure of it should look like. But you'll have to essentially make your own. It's very simple. It's not very complicated, and you'll figure it out by the end after some time of doing it actually. So other than that, unfortunately, many leads won't answer. Okay, they won't answer on the first attempt. That's why I've developed a follow-up system to essentially maximize to the chances of reaching them at the best moment, aka get them to pick up the damn phone. The system essentially includes two distinct follow-up sequences. One is text messages and another is phone calls. So for text follow-ups, it's spread over 30 day periods, one message per day for, it's easy when the voices for they are spread for a 30-day period, one message per day for the first 7 days, with texts essentially also sent on day 10, day 14, day 30. I'll show you how it's done afterwards. And essentially how the texts go. First few texts, I'm just like being there. Hey, did you get my text? Did you get my text? The more time elapses from the day they submitted the lead form. So on day 6, day 7, the more time goes by, I will start becoming more salesy and start playing more on scarcity and FOMO to essentially push them for the sale and ignite that feeling and that emotion that caused them to submit the lead form in the first place again. So if they didn't reply for the first 6 days, we've already lost that emotions that's at the start. So what I do, I try to trigger them again with my text messages. So, like you submitted it, but there's someone who needs it, and I don't know if you still want it or not. Just like play on their emotions, try to manipulate them. Okay. And by the way, it's not evil. By the way, it's just business. uh, After that, for the follow-up calling process, I make 2 calls per day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, 7 days straight. After that, I call them once in the afternoon, on days 10, 14, and 30. Every single calling session is a double dial. So if they don't answer on the first, we double dial them again. Most leads won't answer, unfortunately, and if they don't answer the first few days, they're never answering again. So that's just part of the game. But we just keep trying to get that 1 in 10 person or that 1 in 100 because it's always better to have more, essentially. Okay. The most important thing with this is consistency because you can have it all built out, but if you're not dialing or you don't have someone dialing or your client is not dialing, it won't work. You'll just be generating leads for nothing. So Keep the consistency with the dialing, like cold calling, and do not feel discouraged if people are not answering for a few days, you're having a rude people, or essentially you don't really like the time and effort that it requires. But like just remember this is literally what makes or breaks service delivery and in consequence your agency. So now let's actually show you the real sauce and head to go high level. So this is like one of my old clients accounts. Essentially, if you go to opportunities every day, I'd have someone go to the to a follow-up pipeline, and every day they will find people in here. Okay, so like call end of the day, these are they log in at the morning and they'll find people in call in early morning. They'll double dial them. If they do answer and they don't want it, they'll blacklist them, move them to blacklist. If they do not answer, move them to waitlist. If they answer and book an appointment, once you book an appointment on here, they get removed from the entire follow-up process. They would do this 7 days straight. They would follow the system that I was just talking about, calling in the morning, calling in the afternoon, double dialing. And between that time, there were new leads that were coming that would populate in here in the call now section. And how this actually works, which I will show you on the backend side of things. So essentially, someone submits a lead form, okay? What is it? What the fuck? Let me see. Uh, edit. Copy to some account. Edit workflow. It's not letting me. What the hell? Let me see, try another account. I'll show you this. Either way, you will get a very cool gift at the end from this. So let's see the automations, workflow, service delivery snapshots. Yeah, this one. Okay. So yes, I don't know why. I don't know why it's not working. Okay, so I don't know why Go High Level is not letting me open the snapshot. Either way, how it works essentially, the whole process that I was just talking about in the presentation, essentially that's all built out in automations in the backend. Everything is built out, and actually, what's really cool is you get all of this pre-built. You don't have to, and trust me, once I don't know why Go High Level didn't let me show it to you, but once you get it, you'll show how crazy it is. Like go here, go here. It's like ninja automations, you know? So if you want all of this pre-built and you don't want to redo it yourself, just DM Joe for the snapshot link. If you're on the free group, just DM Joe for the snapshot link. You will not be asked for anything. No money, no paywall, no anything. Just send Joe a DM and he'll send you the snapshot link. I don't know why Go High Level didn't work. I'm very sorry for that. But essentially we'll see it on the backend afterwards, and you'll get the snapshot, everything pre-built, so you don't have to build it yourself again. So thank you everyone for attending this masterclass. And I guess now if you have any questions, let me know. If you have any questions about anything, how you'd make your tracking sheet, you just go to Google Sheets and you just like it, you set up a lot of like functions and everything. And what I will actually do, if you DM Joe and show him proof that you actually got the snapshots, he will send you the template of my sheet for free. That was a lot of sauce, bro. Oh, gotcha, Brie. Can you clarify whether you add the data for it to show on the track? Can you clarify where you add the data? Okay. So essentially, I will actually share my screen again. Okay, so here's the sheet. Okay. You have 3 pages on the sheet. One is where basically you have the dashboard where you see everything like the money, like how much money, essentially all the metrics that I've been talking about. You have a daily Facebook tracker sheet where you basically input ad spend, how many leads, what the CPL, what the CPM, blah, blah, blah. You input this daily from Facebook. Then you have another page where you can essentially every lead gets inputted. I blacked this out because I don't want to be sharing people's phone numbers and names. But essentially everything is in here. And like you specify, okay, this 1K, blah, blah, blah. So everything is like split like this. One dashboard paper, one paper for Facebook metrics, and one paper for leads and what's happening with them. How would you go about calling leads who fill out the form at night? Okay, so in the automation that you will get by DMing Joe, essentially what happens if they get it at night, they will essentially automatically populate into call early morning because you can't really be calling people at night. You just can't do that. People will get pissed. So they get just plugged into the automation to be called first thing in the morning. When I run ads for myself and they get a lead in, how can I know that as soon as possible? Can I get a notification somehow? Okay, so you have two options. One is temporary, one is not. Okay, so you either on the sub account create a user with your credentials and log in the lead connector app. And on that automation, have like an internal notification. It's just like an option that you can add. I think it's in the snapshot as well. And whenever like a new lead comes, you get a notification on your phone. The other way to actually do it is with Zapier. And if you don't know Zapier, it's essentially a software that connects different softwares together. What we do is we have a trigger that's set as if the opportunity is created in new leads on Go High Level, it sends you a message on Slack. And Slack is basically another software. And I know it can get a bit confusing and overwhelming, but it's essentially a software where we centralize all of the communication for an agency. So whenever a new lead comes from Go High Level, it gets created into a pipeline. Once that opportunity is created, it gets triggered into Zapier and it sends a message into Slack. So that's how it would work for getting notifications. Clients will have to work closely to make sure the sheet is updated for no shows. And yes, that depends on the type of essentially type of deal that you have with the client. If you're like, for example, for me, I was closing the deals for them on the phone, so I'd had the entire control. If it was like something that's shared, for example, with real estate, they have to go meet them IRL or blah blah blah. Just make sure that your client is getting notifications every day to remind them of updating the sheet and to get them to actually be accountable. Stress it out on the sales call and the onboarding call that they have to fill it out because that's what actually makes the thing work and the service delivery work. And also have a clause in the contract that if they're not tracking properly, you will contact every single lead to know what happens with them. And if there is like a mistrack or then like something that's not very clear, you actually hit them with a fine and essentially scare them away to get them to actually track it. What is your opinion on income targeting? Okay. So for income targeting, there is two ways of doing it. You either use the Facebook data, which is on platform, which is like 5% top earners, 10% top earners, or you actually do it with location. So you essentially target different zip codes that have higher median income. You can do both of them. Yes, it works in some cases. Yes, it works in some cases, but the thing is, you can do it from the get-go because if you're targeting 10% of the people, that's like you get 90% of the market. So if you're just starting out, you won't have a lot of data that comes in to determine what angle works, blah blah blah. So for income targeting, do it after you understand what this offer works, this angle works, this is what works. Now I'm gonna try to optimize. So that's basically what's targeting with income. It's just to optimize lead conversion to get people who have money that they're ready to essentially spend, but don't do it from the get-go. Do you have to track this manually every day? For the Facebook metrics, yes, unfortunately. You can there is some workarounds to make it automatic, but it's very like it gets too hectic and I'm not gonna do it for every single client. So just block out half an hour in the morning to track the Facebook metrics. As for the lead metrics, they get automatically filled out in the sheet from Go High Level. Just have a create spreadsheet row when lead comes. And then whether you're calling or your client or you have someone who's calling for you, just make sure they update it into the sheet. Is all of the tracking sheet manual inputs from your side or the client side? Can you automate it? Yes, you can automate it, but not all of it. Depends on the niche, as I've said before, and whether it's from your side or the clients depends on what kind of business relationship you have. The lead database is filled manually. Yes, you can go into Go High Level, just create a new automation where you basically have the trigger as a new lead incoming, and then it creates a spreadsheet row. It's very easy to set up. It's a two-step automation. Sorry if not related, just curious if you are billing the client for call charges via Go High Level, do we include it in the service fee? I actually don't. I actually spend from my own money for the calling fees, and I know it gets a lot. Like sometimes I'd have a client where I spent $100 just to call for him, but I like to keep it very neat. If you want to charge for it, don't tell them that you want to charge them for the calling. Just have a higher setup fee. Like basically try to keep everything very simple. You mentioned zip code targeting. Can you elaborate more on that? Okay. So there was a study made that said like the essentially the thing that can predict how your career will look like and how much of a success you will get is basically the zip code area you will living in. So if you were living next to Silicon Valley, there's a high chance you're going to become a Silicon Valley engineer or a tech guy. Okay? So that's what we mean by zip code. So for example, certain zip codes, for example, this neighborhood has a median income of $500 a year, $500,000 a year. Okay? That zip code will have that median. Okay? And you can all actually go to know what's sites like where to know like what's the median income. There's a site called Statista. I'll look for it and give it to you where you can actually see all of the median income zip codes. So by that you target like neighborhoods that actually make more money. Interest targeting or no interest. Interest has been working for me, but I haven't run any ads with targeting. I sell HVAC. Interest. What do you mean? You run it or not with interest targeting? Because you said interest has been working for me, but I haven't run any ads with targeting. Without. Oh, okay. So essentially with targeting, most of the time for local lead gen, it doesn't work. Or in the sense of it does work, but here's the thing. When we're dealing with local lead gen, we're dealing in a small audience. 1 million is very small. Okay. So we try to let Facebook find its way with things, try to find the machine, try to let the machine learning to essentially understand like the behavior of people that are seeing the ad and adapting it to the people who are essentially resonating best with it. With interest, what you're doing is you're limiting yourself at the start. So now you not only have a small audience, you make it even smaller with interest targeting. So that's why I'm not very in favor of it because it's just like not enough volume to be able to have enough data in the shortest period of time. Yes, you can use it. Yes, you can do it. Yes, it can work. There is no black and white in this thing, but I'd always recommend start with no interest. Once you determine, as I said, all of the front end variables, have a small campaign where you can test out all of your craziness, essentially. Do you have any advice for building an effective landing page? Okay, so for landing pages, like as everything in service delivery, it depends on the niche and the type of thing that you're selling. On the ad, are you pitching an appointment, a free quote, a sale, whatever? You'll usually structure it like headline, essentially button for call to action, social proof, another like call to action. That's how it's usually structured. Why not just download monthly reports from Facebook, then they input the data rather than doing it daily for each sub account? Okay. So 1 month, you can't just burn through 1 month of ad spend without knowing what's happening and what's not. So we check that on a daily basis to see what's happening on a daily basis because things can happen day to day. So that's why we need to see it daily. We can't just rely on monthly reports because essentially we'll be able to just make changes after 1 month, which is very, very slow. Do you run retargeting ads ever? Yes, you can do retargeting and but the problem is you can only do it when you have a fuck ton of data and a lot of data. So what I actually did after having like multiple clients and converting multiple clients for my clients, I created a custom audience with the people that converted, and I made like a lookalike audience from that I run for every single client now. But that's just because I have that data. If you still like starting out and you don't have a lot of data, you can't really do that because for retargeting and lookalikes and everything like that, you need to give Facebook a respectable amount of data to be able to work with. If I run ads for two clients in the same area, yes, it will, because essentially you're fighting against yourself, especially if you're using the same offer, same strategies. One of them is gonna get burnt. Work with one person per area. Could you clarify how you use the value equation again? Okay, so with the value equation, what makes up an offer is like four different parts. The essentially time and sacrifice, the money that they have lost, the likelihood of achievement, and the time delay. Those four things are four selling points of that offer. Not all of them might be good. Okay, for example, you might be able to get a very, very nice backyard, but it will take you 3 months to do. That's like a negative point of that offer. Okay. So what I was talking about in the sense of how to use offer for angles, what we do is we take the ones that are positive from the value equation and we test them in the sense of we're advertising as the most positive thing of the offer. So for example, if our service is very fast, we advertise that, hey, get this today, you don't have to wait anymore. or get your house sold in less than 1 month. Like those are just examples. And you do that with every single part of the value equation until you find which variable essentially has the highest return and what variable people actually resonate with best. So that's how you actually use the value equation. What do you think of taking time to create website funnel to better nurture leads or increasing the chance of submitting their info? Okay, so as I've said, once you're just starting and you don't really know what works, what not in your niche, work with instant forms because if you have a new funnel and you have a new campaign, you're testing two new things at the same time. And as a beginner, it's very hard for you to make both of those things work because you still don't have the skills required to make those two work. So what we do, we make it easier for ourselves. We establish everything on Facebook, like the creatives, the angle, the offer, blah, blah, blah. Then when it comes to switching to funnel, it's more of an optimization play, not a not essentially started from the get-go. After you understand your niche and what it does and like how everything works, this creative works, blah blah blah, then you can start straight up with a funnel. And actually, after you understand service delivery and you know how your system works, you'll use like the same things for every single client. But at the start, it's already hard in itself. Don't make it even harder for you to start with to start with a funnel. What is the first position you outsourced in your agency or hired for? Calling center team to call for my clients. What is the cleanest way to run ads? Do you take control of their ad account as an admin or just make them a sub account on your ad account? Okay. So the best way to do it is you have your own business manager and your client has their own business manager. They give you access as a partner, and from that you get access to the ad account on their business manager. Okay. In some cases, you will work with clients that have their business manager banned, so you'll need to create them an ad account on your business manager. But always the best way to do it is to have it on their business managers, but just get access to it. It's same area but different offer in ads. What do you think? If it's same area but different offer, it's very unlikely that you will find offer that work as good. So you will most likely have an offer that works better than the other. So that's you segregating between your two clients. Like, so one of them is going to get better results than the other. So it's not worth it. Have you experimented with the AI appointment setter directly on GHL? Yes, I've had an AI like ChatGPT prompt that answers all of the SMS and talks like on text to people and everything. And it did not work as well as having people call on the phone. I've tested it across 150 leads. Uh, I think that's it. I'm a little confused on the offer versus angle. They sound like the same thing. Yes, okay. The offer is basically the offer is like that entire thing, like the equation, and the angle is just one part of it. If they don't have a business, should I create them one or should I tell them to create one? It's the same thing. You can hop on a call with them and show them how to create it. Most local business owners are not very tech savvy, so you'll have to hop on a call with them and guide them through it or even take control of their computer. So if we do martial arts, $30 for 30 days, that's the offer. What are the different angles for that? I don't know how your clients use it. So see like what's the what the offer by that I mean like martial arts for 30 days, how many training sessions are they getting? What type of training sessions are they getting? What are the results that they can get from those 30 days of martial arts? Those are like three, four things that they can get value from doing martial arts for 30 days. There's different things. For example, become able to defend yourself in 30 days. That's an angle. Become essentially know understand how to fight just for $30. Those are different angles. Get creative with it. How we can book appointment for our client more effectively when lead come in. I don't really understand your question. Can you make it a little bit clearer? So the best way to follow up with leads via calls, nothing more. You follow up with like you follow up with them on text to keep them always engaged, but you close them on calls. Yes. I see. I got you. Thanks. Got you, bro. Just out of curiosity, do you always find leads for your clients? Is there always that much demand for call detailing or any other niche? Uh, Volume doesn't really matter. it depends like what you're converting. If you're like getting one lead but converting every single one, yes, it depends on the niche and what type of transaction the niche does. For example, you have low ticket niches that offer low ticket services, so it's more open for the grand public. You'll have niches that offer very high ticket products or very high ticket services. So like the target audience for that is a bit smaller for people who can afford it. Those are just variables that come into play with different niches. You can't really control it, but you'll always find leads. Okay. Where do you hire from? Upwork. To be honest, everyone that I've hired up until now just come from my YouTube. So they just DM me on Instagram, and I just hire them from my YouTube because I know they have the right culture because they've liked my content. Do you only run Facebook ads up to 50K per month? When do you add another service such? That doesn't really essentially that's not really a logical thing to do because here's the thing. If you're good at one thing, just focus on one thing and become even better at it. Okay? It doesn't matter if you're 50K a month or if you're at 200K a month. If something is working, do not try to fuck around with it. Make it better, but do not change it. So, like, if Facebook ads are working and you got there with 50K a month, you can get there with 200K a month. The same thing, but just make it better. When lead comes in from Facebook ads, how we should contact them to book appointment for them? I don't know if I really understand your question, but from what I understood, on Go High Level, you can actually have buy a number on there, and there will be a little button that you can call them from, and just click on that button, and you'll dial them on Go High Level. In the case of having multiple clients in the same city, how would you ensure your clients are not fighting for the same leads? Would you operate? You have a clause in your contract that you only operate with one client per city, because it's not just about you getting more clients, it's also about you retaining clients. It's easier for you to retain one client from the same city for 5 months than signing five clients every month from the same city and losing them the next month. So only work with people from different cities. When should I call my potential client when he schedules? When should I call my potential client when he reschedules to remind them that? Do you mean like for B2B for your sales system? Can I also call the leads from Skype? No, do not call the leads from Skype. We want everything centralized on Go High Level to be able to record it and essentially know what happens so client can access it too. So everything is centralized and organized. Yes, for B2B, you can call them like even like at the morning of the meeting or like 1 hour before, whatever it is. Niches to stay away from. I've been doing real estate, but really difficult people to work with. Lol. Best niches. There is no best niche. The best niche is the one that you've stayed in for the longest amount of time. The worst niche is the one that you've just switched to. If you can't get your real estate niche to work, it's not a problem with the niche. It's most likely a problem with you because the niche actually worked for people. So you're doing something wrong. It's not the niche. But if I would suggest something, is stay away from low ticket niches that sell a low ticket product because it's way easier to sell a high ticket product for less amount of people than to sell something that's very low ticket for a lot of people. When finding something that works and testing reiterations in this example, we'll use ad copy. Would you say about the ad copy that isn't working in the campaign with the ad copy you had tested and found success? Yeah, you essentially deactivate it. So for example, if you added it, like you add it as a option on the ad itself, you just click delete and republish, or you can even create a new winning ad set where you have everything that works basically. That is, I mean, when we call the leads, it came from Facebook, that's how we should talk to them. Okay, yeah, so I've talked about this, how to structure essentially the call. Just like essentially, hey, what's up? It's whomever from business. I just saw like you claimed this offer, like you saw an ad, and yeah, I just wanted to call to just see like ask you some questions, and we'll see how it goes. Then I'll be like, okay, just a casual conversation. Then you'll be like, ask them 3, 4 questions that are related to the service to qualify them, blah blah blah, to elicit some pain. Then at the end of it, oh, okay, that sounds perfect. Actually, this service actually works for you, or I can get you booked for tomorrow. That works for you. Essentially, pitch whatever you want to pitch. Is it possible to create people who engage with your clients, competitors, social clients, and build a lookalike list? People who engage are not enough of a strong lead. So essentially just create lookalike with people who actually claim an offer. We can just look at people who essentially just are interacting with certain type of content. Yes, it can work, but not as good. And it doesn't make a lot of difference with broad targeting. So don't overthink that. Just go ahead with the simple stuff. Man wants to pitch the paid school yet, haha. What? Man wants to pitch the paid school yet, haha. What is it about? I don't have anything, anything to pitch. The only thing that I pitch is just the pitched is DMing Joe about the automations, and it's completely free. Have you experienced with type forms versus lead forms? Yes, I did. And the type forms get a lot of accidental submissions.
I think we can start wrapping it up because we've been going for like
Oh,
78
okay.
minutes. So I'm just thinking it's probably taking a
Yeah.
while. But
Okay, yeah, for
I don't
sure.
know. Thank you
Okay.
guys for hopping on.
Thank you
Ellie's
very much,
he's
boys.
a beast. He's a beast. So
Okay, yeah.
all right.
Got you, boys.
See you everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
See you
boys.
guys
Oh,
later.
wait.